We'll call this meeting to order. I'll ask our board member, Ms. Baxter, to lead us in our invocation and prayer.
We stand with you, please.
Pledge.
Our gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this opportunity to come here this morning, and we ask that you be with each of these board members and our superintendent as we make decisions for the students of Levy County. We thank you for all the staff that's represented here this morning, and we also thank you for the opportunity to live in the greatest country in the world. We ask, dear Lord, that you be with the situation in the Middle East, and just continue to be with our leaders, and thank you for strong leadership. And we ask that you give us wisdom and guidance throughout this meeting and throughout this day. And we pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, welcome everybody. I will entertain a motion to adopt our agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none. Good morning. I don't know whether to be happy or scared. I know some of y'all well. All right, we'll move first into our superintendent's highlights. Madam Superintendent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. And I have a wonderful email that one of our board members sent to me. And I wanted to share everything that was written here because it is amazing and wonderful, and we have someone among us that needs to hear these words. And so that's why I asked all of you to come here this morning, but I do need that person to stand next to me because I can't go through this email without interjecting their name because it won't make sense. Mr. Lott, if you would please join me up at the podium.
Adam's in trouble.
I am certain he has already received an impact award for all he has done, but if not, I would like to recommend Mr. John Lott. And if he has, he should receive something even better. In my time as a board member, John Lott has been a steadying force and an absolute professional at every position he has held. He was outstanding as principal at Williston, as principal at Bronson. He guided that school back to being the star of this community. And once he came to the district office, he has continued to excel. It's tiny print, so I'm sorry. He is the most knowledgeable assistant superintendent I have seen in my 16 years with the district. I will say publicly that were it not for the work of John Lott, the new Chiefland Middle High School would not be. His meticulous care with the construction of that school is the key reason it came in easily, on time, on budget, and with unquestionable quality. He did this all with the quiet confidence and humility that he has carried throughout his career. He has always been the one working hardest, quietest, and most efficiently. If you need the answer, and you need it to be well thought out, researched, and correct, you go to John Lott. He does so much and knows so much that I wonder what will happen when John leaves. In my time, we have had other assistant superintendents, and we are blessed to have very good ones, but none have been as good as John Lott. When he left the classroom to be an administrator, people wondered who would take his place. None did. When he moved from principal to district office, we wondered who will take his place. None did. Now, as he leaves the office of assistant superintendent, who will take his place? None will. That's my interjection. try, but he is going to be impossible to replace. I do not know if there is a special award, accolade, or recognition that can be bestowed on John Lott, but I certainly support it. You didn't know who already wrote it. Mr. Cameron Ashley.
I knew that, there was too many words.
Wow.
I would like to present this to you from everyone here and a little pin. And if we can get everybody in a group picture, Kaylee, maybe Mr. Delaney, not to keep you out of the picture, but would you please take a picture if we all gather together? That would be wonderful.
Thank you. We're gonna do it, Mayor.
Yes. We have to hide Cameron's shorts though. Here, you take it. Here you go. You take it.
Should we stay back here or come?
Man, that's some sexy legs right there. I may hold up this podium.
Just get in and take pictures where we need
You gotta be inside Breezy and inside Ashley.
Wait, can he do a 0.5 inside Breezy and inside Ashley?
Inside breezy, inside out.
Yeah, escape. Okay, I'm gonna take a bunch, and we're gonna pick the best ones. And one more. 3, 2. All right. Miss Tammy?
How about cameras? Get down the back.
I do want to say thank you all. This is my second one, by the way. But it's been a pleasure serving the board all these years. This is my fourth superintendent. Each one brings a different thing to the table, and I'm very appreciative of that, and different perspectives. They're always nice to learn. And thank you all for the many years.
All right. Thank you, Madam Superintendent, Mr. Lott. I'll remember that comment about all the words. Hey, just so everybody knows, you know where he went to high school?
Let me guess. It had to have been.
All right. We will now move into our finance budget workshop with Ms. Lake, who also went to a very great high school.
Do you know who my economics teacher was?
Oh.
There you go. See?
How about that? Wow.
What does that really say, though? Ooh, I think she just called you.
No, I think he says that's why he thinks I do a good job.
Okay.
So when I mess up, that's probably the last day he'll be here. And I'm trying not to be offended that he got a full house and everybody leaves. All right, so let's have fun without him. You can go on to the next page. This is our budget timeline. So officially, this meeting is not the start of trim. The next meeting is the start of trim. We'll meet on July 22nd. We'll propose with a proposed budget for the board, and we'll approve our trim ads. July 31st, we'll adopt the tentative millage and budget, and September 11th, we'll adopt the final millage and budget. All right, so as we look into this first calculation or conference report, Senate Bill 2500, it just dropped. I mean, I think the paper's still hot. So it was a $15.8 billion education budget, up from $15.6 billion. That is a 1.73 increase, but I will want you to note that inflation has been 2.4. Base student allocation is up $42 or 0.78%. Did I say $42? 0.78%. Private school voucher funding has increased by 3%. So take note of that. We've increased 1.73, but private school voucher funding has increased by 3%, which is above inflation. And no cap on these scholarships. Since 2023, vouchers have grown by almost $1 billion in the education budget. TSIA is no longer what that's called, teacher salary increase allocation, but that's what we refer to it as. Has 1.1 million in this budget, but it had 250 million last year. Florida is 35th in the nation in terms of prosperity, but 48th in economic resources dedicated to public education. So this is one of my favorite CFOs in Miami-Dade, and I believe what he's saying, and he said we're seeing trivial increases that will keep us on a slow, long downhill slide. We hope to slide and not fall off the mountain now. So that's what this budget is about, being conservative. And one thing about, I did want to say that while funding to public schools has increased minimally, the funding to expand school choice has increased exponentially. And we do not have the same ability that private institutions have, which is we can't control our revenue. And they can control their revenue because they can increase those fees. Private schools are not held to the same accountability standards as public schools, and they get $8,000 per student in their voucher program. And I want to also mention that during 2008 financial crisis, we are still receiving, they lowered the FEFP and we're still receiving less than we would have then. All right, so what are some challenges impacting this year's upcoming operating budget? It's always going to be these universal vouchers now that the wheels are off and there's no caps. So student mobility is alive and well, and also there's a homeschool option this year. It was capped, I think at 20,000 last year. This year it's 40,000. FEFP, we're struggling with the minimal base student allocation increase. That $42 doesn't go very far, and again, we're still below 2006 state funding level. FRS is increased again, so retirement has gone up. And then we have inflation and other cost increases that are impacting this budget. Talk real quick about scholarship loss. I won't go through each year, but this is something that you have and you can review. 2004 was the start of McKay. I believe 2020 was the start of FES. And so you can see total loss to scholarships, including what's estimated to be lost next year, almost 5.3 million, is as 25.45 million we've lost. Just with FES, just slightly over 19 million of that is FES. Our base student allocation, I gave you some historical data here. You can see where it started to decrease between 2008 and 2012. You see this year it's growing by 0.78%. So we factored in inflation. We've grown, the BSA has grown 32% since 2008. Inflation's at 48%. So we really should be looking at a base student allocation of about $6,000. Florida retirement, this is just some more historical data. You can see we've increased every year since 2021 except last year. We are on target to increase again this year, and it's going to cost the district roughly $150,000. And the money that's used to pay for that increase is the flexible funds created in with the increase in the BSA. But that is the same money that would be used to fund salaries or compensation packages, new positions, anything like that. So this is the classroom teacher and other instructional personnel salary increase. I think TSIA is just much easier. So you can see this year we have a little over 191,000, which includes the charter school share for this allocation. It's not an allocation, it's part of the BSA now. So that means it fluctuates with the FTE. It used to be set at the second calculation that dropped in July, and no matter what happened to student population, it didn't change. Now it ebbs and flows with every calculation. Maintenance is insufficient, and it will continue to be insufficient if student enrollment declines and we do not react with readjusting staff size. So there is new language for this particular TSIA, and it's allowing for money to go for this, I'm going to say budget, to be used for increased personnel compensation costs. It used to just go to full-time classroom teachers and certified pre-K teachers, but now they've inserted that "or" in there, so it opens it up to different things to negotiate, whether it's for support salaries. There's been some talk that maybe it could cover some health cost increases. I don't know, all that has to be negotiated, but it gives flexibility, with $191,000. So let's look at the FEFP. So I do not have the fourth calculation yet. Usually we have it by now, so we're comparing the third calculation with the Senate Bill 2500, or the first calculation that just dropped. And these are just district and charter FTEs. I've already removed the scholarships. And you'll see there's a decline in unweighted FTE, almost 56 FTE. You see the growth in the BSA we've already discussed. And then you see the dollar increase per unweighted FTE. That $9,526.64, that includes BSA and all the categoricals, all the items that we say kind of below the line. They're usually earmarked for particular expenditures. So total funding increase for the district and charters is just over $514,000. So something different has happened with the additional weighted funding. So we did not lose the CTE calculation and the AP, dual enrollment, early graduation. They used to be part of the additional weighted funding, which you would get a little bit more FTE per student participating in this program. And it would generate dollars to feed these programs. So what they've done this year is, instead of including it as part of the BSA, and then we peel it out because we know how much additional weighting we get per program, they have moved some of these to a new categorical. So you can see, in terms of weighted funding, we've lost about $608,000 with the removal of those particular programs. So now if you go to the new academic accelerations option, you can see total funding will be $616,348. That amount matches what we received in the third calculation, because they wanted to hold harmless for 1 year at least. So they made, moving into next year, the exact amount for these programs that it was in the third calculation. However, as we move through next year and FTE goes up, goes down, whatever it does to impact these programs, it will be reflected in these amounts. So that is not bad news. We were happy that at least they moved it somewhere else, and we were very happy they didn't put it in the BSA, because if they had put it in the base student allocation and maybe we would have gotten $65 versus $42, it would have seemed to our shareholders that we got this huge gain in base student growth, which we did not get. So we'll look at the other categoricals that we will have next year. You see a very small decline in safe schools, a little bit of a bump for the ESE guarantee allocation, which supports our ESE programs. There's the educational enrichment, which used to be the SAI. Student transportation ebbs and flows as well, and normally it's higher in the first calculation. Mental health allocation has declined as well, slightly. And then there's that new categorical academic acceleration options. And that is not flexible money, that is money earmarked for those specific programs that we talked about. One of them is dual enrollment. And dual enrollment, we get about $140,000 and we spend about $170,000. So if you look at those changes in categoricals, you look at an increase in our RLE, again, that's an estimate when you get your second calculation. When I do the proposed budget, that will be a better representation of growth there. You can see net, we have an increase of about 574,000. Now, these are gonna be the deductions to that. Right now, we do not estimate a proration. We know we had a large proration in the third calculation. Most of that proration was based on the underestimated scholarships. So we'll get into that in a minute because I'm almost certain that's gonna happen again. And that is problematic because we don't budget for that. So that is a loss that you see in the second half of the year. So you can see family empowerment scholarships are slated to grow by about 1.1 million. So once we adjust for those changes, we've now, instead of 574,000, we're at a negative $48,000. Class size reduction is going to go down slightly. So before FEF adjustments, we would have a growth. So if you were to pull the first calculation and look at Levy County, it's going to look like we got $1 million gain. You have to go in and remove the scholarships and all those. And once you do that, you can see state funding has fallen by almost $100,000. So that growth we have of 514 is coming from local, from what they're projecting the RLE will bring into this budget. And you can see real quick, talking about why I think there'll be another proration. Our first calculation last year, so what the forecast was built on last year's budget, there were 437.77 scholarships. What we actually had in scholarships were 583.5. So that was an under forecasted for our county of 145.7, which is where that proration came from. And I think the reason it was so hard to project is they opened it up to private schools, to parents and families that have been supporting their students in private education all along, that now have access to state dollars to offset those costs, and they couldn't or didn't forecast well enough how many were going to come into that program. So bottom line, you can see the growth, 514,000, but we have to remove TSIA, because TSIA is in that, because it's part of the base student, so we have to peel that back off. We are having some issues with health insurance claims and cost escalation there, so we're anticipating having to put in about $500,000 into that program, which will come out of the general fund. And then the board already graciously approved an increase in supplements to the tune of around $100,000. We have added, or going to add, additional textbook dollars because it's an ELA adoption, and we do not get enough textbook funds, which, by the way, they moved that several years ago from a categorical up into the base student allocation. So it fluctuates again as FTE goes up and down. So we're going to contribute $75,000 more to make that budget around $550,000. And then the increase in FRS. And when all said and done, we're looking at a loss of around $500,000 with those flexible dollars. So that's just looking at the budget. Now we're going to look at, in a minute, where we think we're going to land this year. So backing up real quick, that $500,000 loss, the way we overcome that is we either have to cut programs or people in order to offset that and balance our budget, or we have to pull it from reserve funding. So that's how we offset that deficit. All right. So this is just looking at our February count, because I anticipate we're going to have a further loss because we lost 42 students from the district between the October count and the February count. And I'm estimating that at around 235. That might be a little high. My finance officer told me today that our last payment from state of Florida looks to be about $65,000 less. So what I don't know is if the difference between the 235 and the 65 is going to hit us next year and a prior year, or if the 65 is going to be it. Once we get the fourth calculation, I'll kind of know where that's going to land. But if we were to lose the 235, you're looking at a loss of almost $688,000 for this year that we're in. That money will have to come from reserve funding. All right, so let's look at where we're at this year in terms of revenue collections. We are estimating collecting about 99.5%. Today, we need to collect about 2.7 million more between now and June 30th to meet that mark. Expenditures, we look like we're gonna expend about 96%. We usually expend 98 to 99. The reason it's less is we have some grants that are in the general fund right now, and the way grants work is you have to budget the grant in its entirety, even though you have 3 years to spend it. So it sort of inflates those collections, so you have to be mindful of that when you look at that. But we still have almost $1 million roughly outstanding in payroll that we need to process, and accounts payable we need to process. So at the end, it looks like we will expend around 58 million. Now, we'll expend 58 million, but our revenue is looking to be around 56, 57 million. So what that's gonna cause is possibly a deficit of 1.5 million. So that means we'll reduce our fund balance, our reserve funding, and end somewhere around 8 million in reserve funding. We'll go from an 18.4 to a 14.9. Now, I do want to remind you, not all of this comes, I'm not surprised by a lot of this, because in the beginning, when we did our compensation package earlier this year, you guys agreed to about a $2 million compensation package between federal and general fund. General fund alone was 1.8 million. But of that 1.8 million, about 400,000 of that was bonuses. So we knew we were going to dig into some of that reserve funding on purpose, because we were maintaining a 19 and 20% fund balance. What we didn't anticipate was the proration and all these other things that have come to pass as the year moved on. But I'm not hugely concerned that we're showing that deficit, because we sort of prescribed that deficit in a way. But my budget's not done, so I do want to remind, what I tell you today could change tomorrow. There are some different things that we haven't done. We haven't done some of our transfers and other things that we would normally do. But right now, expenditures to revenue, we're looking at about a $1.5 million deficit. Now, I know everybody's saw on TV, Facebook, all of our surrounding counties have either let go of quite a few people. They've frozen positions. We have not done any of that. The reason we have not done any of that yet is because I think the board has allowed us to be good stewards of our money. We had a healthy fund balance, but I'm not saying that may come to pass. But right now, we aren't at that sort of, we're not waving a red flag. We're holding on to that fund balance. So when we talk about the fund balance, what is a financial condition ratio? So it's important to know what comprises that, because that is how our temperature is taken, so to speak, by the state. And so that is our total unassigned and assigned fund balance divided by our total revenues less any transfers. So they want to exclude any of those maintenance transfers or other transfers that we do, because that's not a reliable source. You shouldn't be living off of that. So they want to remove that. But again, just keep in mind certain things about that financial condition ratio. And while it may be all we have to test the health of the district, it is, as we get certain grants, certain things, that contributes to that financial condition ratio, because it grows the revenue side. But the expenditures don't always follow the revenue side. So there's just multiple things. You have to know the equation to know kind of what is driving that financial condition ratio. We have a 5% holdback. It's about 2.6 million, 2.7 million. That again will change depending on what that revenue number is. So I look at that as a target. I don't believe that we should try to get ourselves down to 5%. That is a target. We have to look at how many federal salaries we have out there. So if in any one year we lose a federal funding, we can continue the payroll of those particular people. So that's a target that the board has set that as our minimum. But that's just a target. That is not something we want to get down to. 3%, which is all the state requires, is 1.6 million, and that is woefully under what we would need. And I'll show you why in a minute. So when we talk about assigned fund balances, what's in that That is not a place to hide money or move money. These are programs, real programs, that are generating funding through the FEFP in most cases, or outside the FEFP, that we bring into the general fund, and we need to keep that money assigned to those particular programs. Your schoolhouse budgets sit there, some SAC program funds sit there, AP is there, E-rate, which is all that funds our IT programs, CAPE sits there. We have a little set aside for capital and school safety as well. And reserve funding is important on many levels. We know that it acts as a savings account, but it also keeps us fiscally strong and helps maintain a stable operating budget. It helps to mitigate financial impact of major non-recurring or unforeseen events like hurricanes. We do get refunded from the county, but we have to put that money out first. Having reserve funding can reduce or eliminate the district's need in the moment to cut staff and programs. This is a large ship. You can't turn that ship very quickly. And the last thing you want to do in the middle of the year is start cutting teachers and moving kids to other classrooms. So you have to go on throughout that school year if you have the reserve funding, and then make your change in the following year. The biggest way to move this ship, unfortunately, is cutting people. When you have close to 80% of your expenditures going for people between benefits and salaries, that is just unfortunately the quickest way to move this ship. Reserve funds also affect our bond rating. So we want to keep and have a healthier fund balance, so that if we have to borrow money, we get a lower interest rate on borrowing those funds. There's something called a TANS, which is where we are heavily dependent on those local tax dollars to start coming in November, December, January. Sometimes some schools have to go out and get a loan in the gap between July and that November or December, and so it becomes important to be able to get a good interest rate for that. Real quick, how this all ties together, your fund balance and cash flow, is we do have a negative cash flow until we receive the first check from the county. So that means that we live off of reserve funding until around December, January, to the tune of almost 1.7 million. Average payroll, these are last year's numbers, so they're up slightly, but they're all still relative. Average monthly payroll is about 1.7 million. Average monthly expenditures, including payroll, is about 4.4 million. And you can see average monthly revenue is about 4.3. So that's why we have to have that reserve funding. We need it for some other reasons as well. All federal expenditures are paid first and then drawn down. So at any point, the federal programs are borrowing from the general fund at the tune of almost $940,000. We do get that money back, and we get it back fairly quickly, but you have to be able to pay those vendors. General fund reserves can also be used to support major capital purchases before we start receiving local tax dollars, buses, those items. And again, it just allows us to make better decisions, faster short-term decisions on how to address students and staff needs with that reserve funding. And you'll see that mostly, I always think of ESE. So ESE sets the number of aides they need based on the students they have. Then we start getting students that have needs that we didn't anticipate, and ESE may need the general fund to pull in some aides. And we want to be able to do that. We couldn't do that without reserve funding. So this is a historical view of the change in our revenues between 1920 and this current year we're in. The biggest thing I wanted you to see was the variance, so the percents. You can see that after COVID, that 1 year back after COVID, we actually had a decrease in revenues, and you can see the revenues start to increase. 22-23, that's when we added the $15 an hour. So that's why there's a 9% bump there. 3.8 last year and 6.6 this year. So I like to look at that in context of our expenditures. So when you start looking at a growth this year of 6.6% in revenues, you see we have a growth of expenditures of 9.6. So that's not really good. We've got to somehow bring those expenditures back in line with what our revenues are. But you can look over the course of the various years and see what that growth in expenditure and match it with the growth in revenue. I always like to say that is the board in the context of compensation plans. That is the board trying to use fund balance dollars to support compensation packages or give the staff everything you could, because you can see that our expenditures most often are slightly above what our revenues are. Now, we would like to do that with non-recurring funds, so we were very happy with the bonuses last year. This is just bringing everybody back to health insurance and how much the board actually supports currently for health insurance. Almost $5 million a year is the board's contribution for health insurance. This is enrollment changes between May 2020 and May 2025. You can see district is down 64, charter's down 3. You can see that huge increase in homeschools and scholarships. What's important here are the number of students that did not choose us as their option, and that was about 1,500, which would include charters. So if we had those 1,500, mind you, some of those would have never come to our district because they were private school from almost birth, but 1,500 of our students chose somewhere else to the tune of about $8 million. So as we're continuing to build this budget, look at this budget, we continue to address these challenges. We still have a challenge of the increased scholarships, homeschool, which results in declining enrollment. We're continuing to see increased benefits costs, especially with insurance and retirement. We have increased technology needs that we do not have sufficient funds to support. We are fighting inflation and increased operational costs. I bet everybody can tell you that our contracts just keep going up and up. We have quite a few unfunded and underfunded mandates that are a challenge. Class size is going to be an issue. Due to reduced funding, I don't know how, and I'm not speaking for the superintendent, I'm just speaking from a budget perspective, how you manage class size when you don't have the funding to support that. And we want to avoid labor and program reduction. So everything we do is with that thought in mind. What decision we make today, how is that going to impact staff tomorrow? That is all I have. Does anybody have any questions?
Wow.
So we have like almost 25% of the I guess about 20% of people in Levy County that don't go to public schools.
Correct.
That's residents of Levy County that take their kids somewhere else.
Yes.
It's a higher number
And
than I
again,
thought.
some of those, I don't know how many to tell you, have never set foot in here.
Right.
The homeschool ones become a little bit sad because they have stepped foot here, most of them. And there is a little bit of overlap between scholarship and homeschool. I just can't peel them out.
Right.
Because now homeschool, in some
money.
cases, gets scholarship.
Right.
So we're looking at ways to offset that. There's a PEP program that I think Morgan has spoke about, charging some of those homeschoolers specifically that are utilizing our schools. Mr. Lott has been extremely helpful in looking at different areas, AP, dual enrollment. What are some things we can do that might signal we need to tighten our belt, but doesn't negatively impact the students? So we're trying to walk this fine line between not wanting our staff, parents, and students to think the sky is falling, but they also need to understand what we're about to move into. No offense, we don't want to be Alachua County. We don't want to be one of those counties that I would rather freeze vacancies than send people back into this market that we're about to enter. So, but with that being said, we're about to approach where we don't have the lapse time. Teachers don't have as many options anymore to leave the seat. The good news for us is we have more options now as an employer. Bad news is that budget's going to start to be fixed. We're going to have people staying in those seats all year long, where we were reaping the benefit of people leaving and taking a little bit longer to fill that seat, and every year having a little bit of lapse time. We knew this was going to happen. So we just need to make sure that I would rather us incrementally reduce things than really just start to cut. So we're just trying to keep that.
What is the financial ratio of Alachua County roughly? Do you know?
I sure don't.
Of Marion County? Do you look at different ones? Just 'cause-
No, because we're not equal. That's, so in the beginning when I started this job, I would. But now I can't compare myself to anyone else. I can look at what they are doing to remedy and see if I can replicate, but how they got there will be a completely different road than how we got there. We can't even compare ourselves to Gilchrist or Dixie. speculate on how
Right.
Wadrow County got there, but that budget is
But it's
just,
not
you
published
know.
as far as their percent ratio or anything.
It is, I just don't know what it is.
Okay.
Do you know what their county division?
They have the same policy of a 5%,
Okay.
and then they're covered by the 3%, and
Okay.
so.
Yeah, I mean, at 3%, we have 3% 1 year. I mean, I can imagine being
Three
at that.
percent would barely cover payroll, one
Right.
payroll,
Right.
1
Yeah.
month of payroll.
Yeah. maybe.
So I would hope, we haven't come back before the board to increase that yet, but we want to look at that.
Yes.
It's just something we need to look at as we move through the year. There's a timing issue. I think we need to get a little further into this budget and where we're going, but I definitely think that is something that we can discuss with the board if we need to increase that from 5 to 7 or 5 to 8. Maintaining it, so I write the budget, I do the budget. We don't have a lot of control because the spending all happens at school levels and at other levels. So I need to work with Mr. Lott and some other people on our team to start to control some of that so we can better control it at this end. But we have a very conservative district. I do want to say I'm very pleased with how our district spends and how they think, and they're still thinking as if they're in 2008. So that's easier for us. But there are some things, you know, the four-letter word athletics, there are some things we spend a lot of money on that we just need to look at and just see what we're doing. Any questions?
I think that's it for now. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
very much.
We're thankful to have you.
Yeah, for sure. Stay on top of it.
All right. Now, let's look into Mr. Eastman and Mr. Huber, what they have to say. Good news, boys. Good news. Don't come up here wanting to spend money after that.
You heard,
I
lady.
wanna say-
You heard what the lady said.
Source of funds matter. Source of funds matter. I'm talking about general fund, they're talking about capital.
Okay.
Got covered, didn't you? Just kidding.
Mr. Nuster.
Morning.
Must be nice. Go ahead.
We typically put the piggybacks and stuff in the contract, but there's some.
Want
stuff
him
we're
to do
changing.
it.
You want him to do it?
Yeah.
He knows.
Give him a hard time.
We typically put that in there, but we had to change some stuff. We're piggybacking off a UCF contract, but we needed to put in our contract that they require level 1 background screening. We do a level 2, so that's the reason you see that contract, along with the, there's a big amount that UCF had, was it like a $4 million contract? We're not asking for that, we're asking for $250,000 for this particular contract, if we need it. You may look at it and look, it's only for 1 month. It's for 1 month. UCF has an agreement to extend it up to 4 more years, but they're ending in July, so I'm waiting for them to come back to say they extended it for another year, and we're planning to piggyback off of that, but we'll bring that to another consent agenda item on another board meeting.
Okay.
Max here, if he wants to talk about kind of what we're planning to use these services for. It's WWA, by the way.
We already use WWA for emergencies. They've been a very good company for Levy County. Some of our real large systems, like our cooling towers at Wilson High, Chief O'Neill, we just don't have the expertise or the manpower. We're just trying to clean up and meet some statute on the amount of money we spend. We have some projects where we've got some equipment we bought with some extra money. That is why we want to do it this summer. We don't have the manpower to change these units out and upgrade. Summers don't shut down for us anymore. So our guys are running, service calls don't drop. So we just do not have the manpower to do upgrades. So we have to have somebody when we work with Kim every day. If we have in budget, we just need somebody we can call, not go through wasting weeks of bidding process.
Right.
We need this done and we can get it done is the purpose of this contract.
And some of the materials are required.
And
It's
just
just,
for
it's
what
just
we want to do this summer,
installation.
we've got a Joyce Bullock office unit that is something that just popped up. But I do have quite a bit of equipment in storage from the fall
Okay.
that we'd like to get installed this summer. So,
And whereas this contract says 4 million, we're looking at 250.
yeah, so if something was to come up 6 months from now, you know, if it was over that, we would still go out to bid.
So
If
250
it
is a
was
good.
under that
so
and we got it in budget, then we just roll it.
You think 250 will?
I think for our purposes, yes. If we go over that, we would want to entertain probably going out to bid.
Okay. All right. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second, not a septic, that's a whole different. Look, I'm on muscle relaxer, okay?
We'll give you a break.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to accept, this proposal. All those in favor, any questions, first of all, any questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Hey, if you didn't know, Mac Huber had a birthday, 63 years old.
Oh.
Looks good for 63, don't it?
Yeah, happy birthday.
What's the secret to them genetics?
And you're driving?
He's only kidding.
He's not 63.
No, you said you're driving,
No,
that's a relaxer, she told me
you're
too.
driving.
Am I driving? Yeah, I'll relax you. She's good.
One question, did he graduate from Bronson High School?
Oh, yeah.
No, Mr. Huber did not graduate from Bronson High School, but he fell in love with the Bronson High School. And said, I gotta go there.
Close.
That's close, that's close, that's close. Mr. Stockton?
How you doing?
I'm good, bud.
Having fun.
Fun always.
Good morning. I'd like to say about the last presentation, we're lucky to have somebody like Mr. Huber with his knowledge and expertise in the air conditioning field, HVAC, gas, and he can work through these bids. These bids are very complex, and he's, he has the knowledge to work through them. We're proud to have him on our side, and I'll also say that WWA, when we have went out to bid, they've been competitive and they're very responsive to our needs. We can call on emergency, they there. So
'Cause time
that means a
matters.
lot.
Yeah.
Time and matters for sure,
That's
because
right.
you can't.
So, and they got local people that have skin in the game, kids in the schools
Oh, yeah.
and the community.
Absolutely.
So, what I'm here for is to, update you on our warehouse project. We did not get our CO, certificate of occupancy, yet. We had a change in our building official, NEPEC that we contract with, and he assured me he would have it before the end of this month, we would get it, but statutes require that I come give you an update if we don't have our CO. So, in case he doesn't make it, I'm just giving you a budget update on it. We're basically completed with all costs that we had planned, and we have roughly $15,000 remaining in the budget. Since we're having to roll this and having to do this presentation, it's not something that would affect our CO, but I've talked with Ms. Lake, and we're gonna reach out to insulation company to see if we can get the remaining portion of that warehouse insulated for this money to help out Brandon and the guys that have to work in there. I've already reached out to the company that insulated the original portion that we climate control, and I reached out to them twice and have not heard from them, and so we're going to find somebody else, see if they want to do some work for us. So, that being said, if we do not insulate it, that's what we're gonna have left over, roughly $15,000. But if we can get insulation and get it for that price range, we want to do it while we got the money.
You seen the spray foam insulation?
Yes, it'd be sprayed.
And you don't think it would go over that?
Well, it won't, because we don't have,
Right.
we're not gonna do it.
But
And we do have the option, we want to just insulate minimal the roof deck.
Right.
That's where, so we'll
That's the
see
heat.
what our options are when we get somebody to give us a quote. So I'm having quoted a few different ways.
Okay.
Just doing what we gotta do by statute to update you on where we're at for it.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Breezy.
Thank you.
All good? Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I forgot to say, I still appreciate working with Mr. Gore on everything we do.
Fantastic, fantastic. Hey, I'll even go so far as this. You do a good job. What school did you go to? You'd do better if you was Bronson, but what school did you go to?
Over in God's country.
There we go. All right, you and Gore both, right? Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought. Took all you could do to get through, but it worked, right?
After we had a long line up here.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
right.
All
I
right.
was Miss Chief in high school.
That's it, that's it. At this point, is there any public comment that would like to be brought up at this time? This big crowd.
Big crowd.
All right, we'll move over to our minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read those minutes?
Yes, sir.
If there are no changes that need to happen,
I make a motion to.
we have a motion to accept. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Well, we'll move on to our consent agenda. We'll start with Mrs. Campbell. Mrs. Campbell, do you have any questions or concerns with the consent agenda?
No, I've already had my questions answered. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Baxter?
My questions have been answered. Thank you.
Mr. Whitehurst?
The superintendent answered all my questions.
And I have no questions. So, man, that's pretty good. All right, I'll entertain a motion to accept it.
Make a motion to approve.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign? Motion carries. What about on the finance agenda? Ms. Campbell, any questions?
No.
Mrs. Baxter?
No.
Mr. Whitehurst?
No, sir.
And that's another no from me, so I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. It is now our superintendent's turn again to
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
let us go.
Thank you. I just want to give a shout out to Michelle Studstill and Sherry Tyndall, the last board meeting, for all the help in the absence of Mrs. Hogan having a wonderful vacation with her family
Well deserved.
and grandchildren. But they were a big help, and they stepped up immediately and took care of all the paperwork and the downloads, and it's good to have them where they are. Also, it was a busy week last week, and I know all of you will talk about your successes at the schools, but I was able to attend with about 70 district staff, teachers, and admin, the Avid Leadership Conference, and that was amazing to see how hard and collaborative the communication was. You would go to breakout sessions in the morning, and then we would all come back and go to what's called a site team, and Mr. McClellan was present as well. And then from there, everyone would be together. You'd be broken down at tables from your different schools, but we would all work on everything together, and just it was great. It was really a wonderful experience. From there, I went over across the street, so to speak, to the FFA State Convention, and honestly, I think those general sessions might have blown an eardrum on the right side.
Oh, man.
I've never been in a place that was that loud in my life. But
They get rapid.
those kids were amazing. I mean, it was, to see the pride on their faces, from the little ones to the ones that were making their speeches because this was the last time they would be on that stage. Some were tearjerkers, but it was wonderful to experience that. And on a legislative side, just to let you know, all your hard work and the district staff, when you sat together and did those one-pagers and we went to Tallahassee, we were approved a portion of that, of the appropriations that we asked for, at $487,500. So Miss Lake is aware of that, and that will go to some of the roofing projects. And I know Dr. McDougall called, and she was happy about that, but that's due to what you all did for them to approve that. And that's all I have.
Mrs. Campbell, do you have anything?
Well, I just wanted to share that I did visit the summer programs that are going on at our schools. The coalition is doing a great job. I was amazed at how many students are involved. Our students are taking advantage of it. It's great. Also attended the school board conference, which was wonderful. and the guest speakers were great, and the theme was communication, and it was learned a lot about how to communicate at times of conflict or when there are controversial issues at hand, and so that was good. I did attend the professional AI development yesterday, and it was fantastic. And it was so good for me because I have so many questions about AI. And I think that one of the most important things that I heard that helped me realize just how important it is for me to get to know more about AI and all of us. AI will not replace you as a teacher, but someone using AI will. So we do have to get with it, with AI. And the presentation was great yesterday because it was informative about AI, but it also raised all the questions that I had too, and how are we going to work it here in Levy County? So it was great. And I was thankful for the opportunity to attend. Thank you.
Mrs. Baxter?
Well, I too enjoyed the school board conference in Tampa, and communication is key to any organization. So, and like Ms. Campbell said, they talked about what to do in a crisis situation and other situations that can be uncomfortable. So that was very informative. And I plan to, my visit is scheduled for next week. They had to reschedule my visit to the school where the Achieve programs are going on. So I'm supposed to go next Monday, I think it is, so I'm looking forward to that. And last week, Ms. Boyle mentioned about the FFA convention, and I was extremely proud of the Chiefland FFA. One of my former students was elected as the Area 2 State Vice President, Riley Locke. Her dad was a former Ag advisor, FFA advisor at Chiefland. And then my nephew, Ari Grant, was a State Star Farmer winner, and he also was a proficiency winner in vegetable production. We had Keely Serrano Aguilar, who did, she was a champion for the Spanish Creed, and she'll go to the Nationals in October. And our parliamentary procedure team, which they had something that happened, one of the team members had an appendicitis attack and had to go to the hospital, and another student stepped in. They still placed third. So anyway, I'm very proud of the Chiefland FFA. That's all.
Mr. Whiteheart?
So last week, I'll start with the FFA. Wilson had a bunch of different people competing in different stuff. Saw some of the highlights. Colin McGowan was a State Star Discovery winner. My daughter Annabelle was elected the District 3 Secretary and also placed second state in Prepare Public Speaking. And our junior conduct team finished second state. So a couple really close to state winners, but right there. So just there's some more kind of make you want a little more, you know, kind of it's bittersweet, but kind of give you a little edge to maybe want to do something, push over that. So anyway, exciting. And then, like I said, we had a lot of other people competing. I was also participated in the Safety Patrol last week, so it was an early start. Ms. Bull saw us off at 4:30 in the morning. So right there at Bronson Elementary School, and that was a long bus ride. We ended up getting there about 9:30 that night after all the stops and stuff. So in my 6'4" self on the bus is a kind of tight spot. I'll tell you that right now. Cramped up, but it was good. And seeing the being in Washington D.C. and seeing the patriotism, you know, and how we persevered through all the struggles, from facing struggles from other countries to civil war within ourselves, and just how we've always came out on top, through our differences. Ms. Baxter said, to be able to get along, that's important. We've lot of lives have been lost through that struggle, but, you know, a lot of people who fought for our freedom, thank goodness we're able to sit here on this board, do what we do because of a lot of people's sacrifices. So it makes you appreciate it, seeing, you know, the names on the, you know, the Vietnam Wall and the World War II, Korea, you know, just, you know, we sit here and we take so much stuff for granted that, you know, that a lot of people have fought and died for us. So that makes you really reflect and appreciate of that. So, but it's a very good trip, and certainly encourage anybody to go to Washington, D.C. and experience that. That's all I have. Thank you.
That's cool. What was your favorite part? What was your favorite thing you saw? Or maybe, what was your child's favorite thing?
We went to the Capitol and just walking into the rotunda
Yeah.
and seeing.
It's impressive.
It's
Thing where
impressive
you
seeing
can whisper
that.
here and here and over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, I mean, that's one of the best ones.
It's neat.
Yeah.
It really is cool.
If I had to pick one, that was
It's
probably
cool. Again, I would say congratulations to the Bronson FFA. They did a fantastic job this year. We had a ag sales proficiency recognition. We had Carson and Maddie, that's their names. Carson Meeks and Maddie, and I can't remember Maddie's last name for nothing. Stewart. Won the Power Structural and Technological Division of the Ag Science Fair.
Wow.
Ag Mechanics team was recognized for being 4th in the state. Farm Agribusiness Management team recognized for being 3rd in the state. Poultry Evaluation 2nd in the state. We're all like right there. Had a couple state degree winners, and we have a gentleman, Liam Meeks, who is going to be recognized for American FFA degree. But what I would like to add to this, and this is not disparaging of anybody else, and sitting on this board, I've told people this out in public, and it's going to be public record now. There was a point in the Bronson FFA where I didn't have a whole lot to say. We were just getting by, barely. And now we finally have an advisor who is there to be an advisor, who is there to push these kids. I can remember time to go to state convention, there were 3 kids from Bronson. And wasn't getting their name called, we just there for a week of vacation. And that's what it was. And go to national conventions in 2 or 3, and hey, we're gonna just hang out. We didn't have anybody. And Kelly Barnes has come in here, filled that gap, Chiefland graduate.
That's right.
Filled that gap and has turned that thing around to now we're back to being Bronson. And that's what there was a time, in my FFA time, and shortly before and shortly after, where if any of at that time there were only 3 in Levy County, Bronson, Chiefland, Williston. If any of those showed up at a contest, then big schools said, uh-oh, we're in trouble. That's right. The beauty of FFA is we don't have 5A and 1A. You go against the big boys.
That's right.
And these little boys from here can whoop up on them big boys every day. And it's pretty cool to see that happening in every school. I would also like to say congratulations to Miss Annabelle Whitehurst, because her mama is a graduate of Bronson. I know that's what's pushed her. And Mr. Eric Grant, his daddy is a Bronson graduate. So
That's true.
we have to pull for them, and that's what's really pushing it. And Collins McGowan, well, her dad wanted to come to Bronson. So, but I'm glad y'all had a good time. I'm glad we're enjoying our summer. And if nobody has anything else, meeting adjourned.